Deploying the next generation firewall using virtualwire is the fastest way to get it into the network and with this establish full visibility and control. In a moment, I will explain you the concept and some use cases. If this is your first time here, I'm Lars from Consigas. We call ourselves the Palo Alto Networks experts because the next generation firewall is our passion. It's what we do all day every day, migrating firewalls, providing managed services, and most important, implementing security best practices. When I started to work with this box in 2010, barely anyone knew about Palo Alto Networks. But as an engineer, I felt that this solution will change the world of cybersecurity. And yes, today we know it did big time, because it's one of the few security solutions that can truly secure your network. However, there's a caveat. You need to set it up in the right way in order to be effective. Because while it's awesome, it's not a magic box. So over the years we became a professional service partner for Palo Alto Networks, as well as one of a few elite authorized training centers. And with working in the field for so many years and being a trainer, I would like to share my experience with you. So over the next couple of weeks and months, we will release new videos and core concepts explaining the fundamental workings of the next generation firewall, starting with the threat landscape, then deployment methods, NAT, FID, SSL decryption, VPNs, and many more. So follow us on LinkedIn, YouTube, or Twitter to stay up to date. But now let's get started with virtualwire. The principal idea behind a virtualwire is that we can integrate the firewall transparently into the network, means we really, like the name says, simulate a wire, and with this pass traffic through at layer 2. So the way we do this is, obviously here we have our interface, and the first thing as usual what we have to do is define interface type. So we define this interface as a virtualwire interface, and the same on the outside. And now we kind of need to combine them, and we combine them with this what we call kind of a virtual wire instance. Okay. So now, obviously, this is supposed to be a wire. Means all the traffic comes in here has to go out on the other side, and respectively the same thing. Everything that comes in here has to be sent out on the other side. So with this, by definition, a virtual wire can always have only two interfaces, and it has to have at least always two interfaces. Okay, so with this, it's a pretty simple setup. Now in the setup, what we shouldn't forget about is our zones. So also here we now have our zones. So let's say here we have on the inside we have our office zone, and on the outside we have our internet zone. And it's a very good example because with this you can see actually the power of zones, right? Because on the firewall we define policies, and we always define them in the same way, from a zone to a zone. And with this, even so we have loads of different deployment methods on the firewall, we don't really need to care about this kind of interface stuff on the bottom, right? Because with our policies we just do from zone to zone, and have it all always in the same way. Now, what are the use cases for virtual wires? Now, you should always use it if you kind of, again, very quickly need to integrate the firewall without it you can kind of change the network infrastructure at layer 3. Okay, that's really kind of the most common use case. So effectively the use case is use virtual wire whenever you cannot use layer 3. Right, so layer 3 should be our principal way how to integrate a firewall into a network, right? And whenever we cannot do this, then usually virtual wire is a very good alternative to it. Where you shouldn't use virtual wire, you shouldn't use it as kind of a part of a migration process. So let's say in this case, you have an existing firewall and you put as part of the migration the new firewall in front just to see what is going on. Now, this it can be a valid approach, but the reason I do not recommend it is that practically what I've seen really happening in real life is that doing something like this is just delaying the overall migration project, because then the firewall is in and kind of the job is kind of half done, right? And then with this it always kind of leads away the kind of the focus on the project of getting the firewall migrated, right? That's why I usually don't like this approach. But again, migration strategies we're actually going to talk about as well later on in another module.
And by the way, if you're interested in security best practices for Palo Alto networks, then check out the blog on our webpage. Here in the best practice section, you can download this worksheet with over 120 best practices for the next generation firewall. And very soon, we will also launch a security best practice training with a lot of videos explaining all of these security best practices in detail. So if you're interested, then sign up to our mailing list and we will let you know as soon as this free training is available.